Welcome to Pillow Grounds, a workplace podcast. Pillow Grounds is created by and for the Jacob's Pillow community. Each episode will open space for real talk, where we speak about the joys, challenges, lived experiences that shape our work and well-being, and where we can explore how to build thriving workplace cultures. I'm Dr. Angelica McCarthy, she, her pronouns. I'm the wellness consultant here at Jacob's Pillow. And today we have Nicholas Kowerko, assistant to the director and board liaison with us, as well as the author of Peace Perception, the Movement Insight. So welcome, Nicholas. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you this morning?
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and always a pleasure to talk to you and be in your company, Dr. A.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're going to dive right in because in our conversation before we started really recording here, there's just so much to talk about: the spirituality, the nature, the inner peace of self, that journey of how we come to ourselves, and sometimes it's circumstantial, sometimes it's catalytic of an experience that allows us to know ourselves more. So tell us about your story, your spiritual journey, what you care to share of where it started for you and then leading into writing Peace Perception.
Yeah. Okay. Well, right. Where to
I know it's
begin?
heavy.
I bet. Well, I mean, I think, my journey, uh, I guess my real spiritual understanding had come in a way that I notice begins for a lot of people, which is the simple observance of synchronicities. That, I mean, like, I grew up in the church, the Christian church. Like, I was raised a Methodist. I went to church every week. So I very much came from that upbringing and still identify with like a level of Christian iconography, but my spiritual practice and my spiritual understanding is it just means something different for me at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think like as I was moving through life, I had started to just like become aware of synchronicities that like, okay, I'm, noticing repeating numbers, or I think of someone and then I get a text message from them, or, I mean, like pick your thing, right? It's like you think of something and then you see it, and then that had then kind of led me into what I really kind of consider the sort of like manifestation craze that is certainly all over social media. People sort of quote unquote discover the law of attraction, and they're like, oh, I can think of something and then I can materialize it into existence, and blah 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 blah. And for a number of years, I feel like I certainly wielded that sort of understanding to bring certain experiences into my life. Um, but inevitably, what I had learned about the spiritual journey is that you can only sort of remain in one consciousness for so long. So, like, you can use the law of attraction, you can get out your journal every morning and just like hammer away at like what it is you're trying to manifest. But eventually you're going to reach this point where like affirmations won't work anymore, or you're really going to try to manifest something but it won't, happen, or you're going to try to sit down to meditate and the meditation won't happen. Um, and I really like something that I heard from a yogi uh, saying that meditation is not something you do, meditation is something that comes on its own.
Mm,
And I really like that perspective that
yeah, me
like,
too.
oh, like, yeah, that like sometimes like I try to sit down and I just think to myself, like, I wonder if meditation is going to come today. And maybe it will and maybe it won't. Um, but then, and I guess this is the real catalyst and the real answer to your question, and it goes to what we were talking about kind of before we started recording, is that I just had some like really intense experiences in life and in the industry. And, I don't, defend or justify when like really bad things happen in life. But at the same time, I feel much more intimate within my spiritual practice because of like some of those more intense experiences. And uh and it sort of goes back to like before I was working at Jacob's Pillow, when I was also in like toxic workplaces or, dealing with like some really intense personalities in the industry. And we certainly know that those do exist in the entertainment industry. Um, and so, like when you're sort of like faced with like such significant force coming at you in the universe,
Yeah.
then like you really do kind of have to sort of like wake up and be like, oh, okay, like I need to really meet this. And my spiritual practice or my sense of self care and self nurturance needs to become much deeper.
Yeah.
So, and then, yeah.
So that took you to writing Peace Perception in the end. What was like putting all of this understanding that you've come to learn within yourself and your study to then put it on the page and make it public and to put it out in the world? How did that come about?
Mm. Yeah, I think so. For one, excuse me, for one, I had really come to an understanding of mood being deeply connected and intrinsic to perception, right? So, like, if you're in a really bad mood, if you're angry, sad, frustrated, disappointed, you're going to hold a certain perception about life. It's like there's a quote that I love. I don't know who said it because it was just on social media one day. Never trust how you feel about your life after 9 p.m.
Mm.
That like, like if you've been yeah, but look, if you've been through a really long day of work and you're really frustrated and run down and tired, you're going to have thoughts that are like not constructive or thoughts that like may not really be the truth of the situation.
Mm.
Um, and so, I mean, like, I think, most people have at least a basic understanding of how mood informs thinking, right? That, like, some people get hangry, right?
Yeah.
They're really hungry, and so that puts them in a bad mood, right? But then they eat, they have a nice meal, and it's like, oh, wow, I feel so much better. Um, and like on a larger uh scale, it could be something like let's say you're going through a breakup, like a romantic relationship ends, and yeah, like same thing, you just like have these thoughts that are like, could be like really sad, depressed. Hopefully they're not destructive. But they're there, right? So like there's a line of thinking that's there. And, like, but then you could be with a certain friend and the friend could be so buoyant and full of light, and your spirit is just so lifted by being with them, and so then you have a different train of thought. And so yeah, I mean, like, and I think like certainly in the context of the pillow, right, that like when you're in the middle of the festival and it's so intense and the days are so long and there's so much to do, like one could be stressed out and you like have a certain train of thought, like you have a certain perception, right? And then maybe obviously it depends on the type of position you have with the pillow, but then maybe during the fall and the spring, like if your schedule looks like something different, you know, the thing that was really bothering you in the middle of the festival suddenly doesn't bother you anymore, like when it's December, right?
Yeah.
or the difference between like, you know, your thought process and your perception when you're in a really long day of work versus a vacation or your day off or whatever. So yeah, I mean, like I think that was like really one of the big um sort of impulses that kind of that was behind the writing of Peace Perception, of just like, okay, one, mood and perception are linked. If you're in a bad mood, you're going to think certain thoughts. If you're in a good mood, you're going to think certain thoughts. And and so to for me, like, coming to writing this, I mean, I should also say that this is a pandemic product.
Mm,
So like and again, like, talk about a change of perception,
yeah.
right? That, like, there's how we viewed life and how we viewed the world before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and then we viewed life and the world in a different way. And and of course, like, there was obviously a lot that happened, uh coinciding with the pandemic. Presidential election for one, and calls for racial justice, and just like a lot of things that, like, also had to do with shifting perception,
Yeah.
right? That, like,
We're
oh,
still in that now, aren't we? Just a different shade
absolutely.
looking, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, the second part, and this was really one of the things that I wanted to talk about today. Um, I did a lot of reading and a lot of research in the early part of the pandemic, because I was in a particular life situation where I I had an in-person job, and then I went remote. At the time I was teaching. Um, and I know not everyone, had the ability to, like, become remote with their job. Obviously, many people lost their jobs, or some people had to continue working in person, with whatever it is they were doing at the time. Um, but I was just reading everything I could get my hands on as far as spirituality, psychology, religion, literature, relationships, physics. Not that I'm saying I fully understood everything that I was reading about physics, but the one thing that I really took away from that period of research that had sort of just confirmed these certain uh, understandings and perceptions that I was working with was, this is a universe of magnetism that, we human beings, everything on the planet, in the universe, we are in a giant electromagnetic field. So even, as I'm here, as you're there, out the window, everywhere, there's, trillions of spinning particles and atoms moving around us, through us, with us at all times. This is a universe of magnetism. And my whole point, and what I like, the one of the main things that I really try to drive home in the book is that, okay, this is a universe of magnetism, and that magnetism is observable in everyday life. So, on the really extreme end of things, magnetism is present in addiction. However extreme or mild an addiction might be, right? Like, there's, like, it sort of makes sense that, like, okay, I'm a magnet, I have a certain polarity, and there's another thing over there that is a magnet and has a certain polarity. I'm, naturally attracted to certain things in life, and I'm naturally repelled by certain things in life. Um, and, like what I was talking about before, where it's like, okay, when you're in a certain mood, you're displaying a certain kind of magnetism.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm in a bad mood, I'm magnetizing negative thoughts. If I'm in a good mood, I'm magnetizing certain thoughts. And like, if you were to look at uh, like a subway station in New York City, like from a bird's eye view or something like that, it would be a complete clear display of magnetism, a clear display of the laws of rhythmic motion,
Mm.
that like you sort of, you just like sort of like it would be like looking under a microscope, and you're kind of like looking at like how particles are like grouping together and going apart and everything. And 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 so therefore spirituality is also about a person's context of magnetism, that like, you know again, to use affirmations as an example, an affirmation hopefully is about invoking a concept of magnetism. So like you're saying something, you're trying to speak and declare an affirmation in order to magnetize like a type of experience to you. Prayer is magnetism. Yoga is trying to be aligned with whatever your magnetic polarity
Mm.
happens to be in a given moment. Um, and and the problem that we run into, and the thing that can prevent affirmations from working, is if your personal magnetism is so completely different than the affirmation you're trying to speak,
Mm.
right? So just to put it in a simple way, if you yourself are like really sad, angry, upset, and frustrated, saying the affirmation, all is well, like it's like two like completely different things that are going on,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
almost like the affirmation is like like not it's like, okay, what's the point of that? Like, because in this moment I'm not feeling like all is well.
Yeah.
um
I feel like there are moments in affirmations I have to, like, I can tell if it's an embodied belief versus just thinking it and saying it. And I
mm,
know exactly what you're talking about because I've been there of, internally not necessarily believing it, but saying it. And you can sense that disconnect for sure.
right,
Like, why
totally.
am I saying this?
And
Yeah.
yeah, well, and I also think, like in this day and age that we live in, where there's hundreds of self-help books, there's hundreds, if thousands of affirmations, there's so many different paths to like try to get to some kind of peace, joy, happiness, success, like, whatever it is. And so it's just like, how do I know what to do? How do I know what the thing is for me? Like my friend over here read this book, like, whatever, like The Power of Now or something by Mel Robbins or Abraham Hicks, right? Like whoever, right? Like pick your spiritual teacher. And like that friend is like so identifying with it and swearing by it,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, like this book changed my life. Like you gotta read it. And then maybe you do read it and you're just like, oh, this doesn't resonate with me. Like I don't get it, or I disagree with it, whatever it is. And like it's, that's only natural because you both of you have two polarities in a universe of magnetism. And that I think the solution, and it's not an easy one, but the solution is to try to align your spiritual practice with your consciousness. So, you could go through a period of life where like you just don't even use affirmations because you really just need to be breathing,
Mm.
right? It could be something as simple as that.
Well, can I
Or
interrupt you real quick because, like,
sure.
even why? Like, for the person that's listening that has no idea what we're talking about as far as like consciousness and even the reason why for it. Like, I ask why. Like, that essence of peace and that spiritual practice for self. What is its importance?
As in just trying to understand your question. So you're saying like why have peace, or what
Yeah.
is peace, or
Yeah. Like why? The
yeah.
consciousness is part of that, obviously. Like
Mm,
it's what you were talking about at the very beginning of getting to that. We're at that point of consciousness, and then it's to that next level. It's that next phase of understanding self. But like, why? Why should
mm,
why do we need it? I should say. Maybe that's the question.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I think no one would go on any sort of journey if something wasn't already really upsetting them. Like a person, in our society, many people don't go to therapy when they're already feeling really good. Like, I mean, we should.
We
Like, we
should.
should always,
We should always.
yeah, like we
Yes.
should always like have, like that outlet, that person we can talk to regardless of how we're feeling. But we are in a context of society where like a person is depressed or in grief and therefore they go to therapy, or a person is depressed and in grief and therefore they go to church or they seek out some kind of spiritual fellowship, or a person is really frustrated with their life and so they go to the bookstore and like try to get like the book that's like, change your life or whatever, right? Like pick your title. So I mean, so to, I think to just like try to get to the essence of your question, I hope, right? It's like uh, presumably a person wants peace because they don't have peace, or they want peace because they're not perceiving it, or or in the more extreme cases, they could be having uh some kind of what's the word? Maybe you can help me out, where like, like you have like a really bad, I shouldn't say bad, like just like a really significant emotional charge within the body and it's
Mhm.
showing up as physical pain,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So like, is it like a psychophysical response, or there's
Yeah,
some kind of
it's the
term for
mind
it?
body connection. I mean, that you speak to interconnection in peace perception. Like it's all things are connected. And so how I speak about it from the, I guess, my perspective of being an athletic trainer and speaking about whole person wellness, it's like we have to speak to the spiritual, the emotional well being. We have to speak to those things because that's influencing how we show up. Like you said, the mood and the perception. So, um, yeah, whether it's showing up in our actions, our behaviors, and um, our responses, are this or that. It's literally tenfold. Those symptoms that show up physically, if we're trying to, from my perspective, prevent ill health and burnout and things like that, like that awareness, that essence of inner peace, what inner calm, whatever that looks like, whatever that means, that's the importance of it. Like, how do you want to feel every day? I don't want to get up and
Mm,
feel like crap every day. It doesn't mean that it's going to be
mm,
perfect. It all has its purpose, but the I guess the definitely that question of the why from me, why need it? It's because we get so caught up in the fact of things not being the way that we want them to be. We get stuck in the
mm,
scarcity and limitation and the emotion and the feeling and the thought and all those things. And so when in speaking with you about your peace perception and your journey and imparting that on others, it's like obviously they'll make their own definition and meaning to it, but um,
yeah, it's making me
it's
think of
important. It's important.
yeah.
I've got no other. I've got no other words because for me it's like there's no other way. So
Right. Well, and it's making me think of in A Course in Miracles, which is also a spiritual program that I was deeply impacted by. I quote A Course in Miracles a bunch of times in my book, Peace Perception. Um, but there's one part of A Course in Miracles that I wouldn't necessarily say it's an affirmation as much as um, just like a statement of truth. I don't know, like I don't mean to be like pedantic about word choice, but at any rate, there's a part in A Course in Miracles that just says, this need not be right now. So, like, if you're like feeling really bad about your life, that need not be, right? Like, you don't have to go through life feeling down all the time. And, and I feel like I'm sort of treading water a little bit because like spirituality has also become sales
Mm,
in our society, right? It's like, hey, do you want peace? Sign up for my 30-day course and pay 2 grand for, or whatever, right? Or like, hey, do you want to feel better about your life? Purchase the $70 MP3 that's going to help you meditate, right? Like it's become like a sort of like sales and marketing pitch,
yeah.
in many ways, and the good programs are free. Like the good programs are like you really don't need anything. As in you don't need to like purchase anything. So the reason that I'm sort of pausing is in that context of like spirituality as sales and marketing. I've noticed that they do try to like drive the point like, hey, you can feel good all the time. All you got to do is sign up here, put in your email, right? And so there's like it is a balancing act
Yeah.
because like, on one hand, like we should generally feel good about life. I think that is our birthright, regardless of who you are. Like there should be just like a peace that is present. But understanding that like waves of energy, again, it's a universe of magnetism. We're in an ocean of spinning particles and atoms that like, yeah, like there's gonna be waves of sadness. There's gonna be waves of anger and frustration. Life is gonna change. Certain relationships are gonna end, certain jobs are gonna end. Life is moving, life is changing. And so you so it's not like, oh, I can be happy no matter what's happening. It's, I can be sentient no matter
Mm,
what is happening.
mm,
I can be feeling my life experience no matter what is happening, and the feeling of it sort of like allows the electric charge to move through the physical body a little bit easier, so that you're not walking around constantly angry, feeling like a kettle boiling over all the time. That it's a continuous sentience.
yeah. I love that. So how do we apply that in the workspace? Like in how we approach our day to day in this ever so fulfilling but taxing, stress, sometimes chaotic in all the good ways because chaos is good. But how do we approach that in our day to day in our workspace? How would you? What's that practical application that you could offer to our fellow colleagues here at Jacob's Pillow?
I would say do nothing. Like
Ooh,
please, please, please do nothing. Like stop what you're doing and just sit there and experience the emotions that you're having. Um it like, again, there's, like if you're on social media, if you're in um like if you're sort of like in like some kind of spiritual practice or in the world of that marketplace, so to speak, there is such an emphasis on action, right? Like, get out your journal, write down 10 affirmations every morning, or like, wake up at 4 a.m. every day and experience the morning and, try to get stuff, right? Like, it is like, it's action oriented. Um, and there is a time for action, of course, right? Um, but I think, like, in the context of the festival and the context of like, what you're saying of like, there's a sort of like ever-present chaos that's happening. um we actually do much better by just like really really taking a few moments to like really just so completely stop, sit there, try to locate any sort of sensation that's happening, because what often happens in our workday is like we're pushing down feelings in order to be productive,
Mm.
right? Like, oh, I can't think about that, or I'm gonna cry about that later, or what, like I can't be angry about that right now because I have to like focus and like, be professional or be ebullient and positive, right? And those things, can exacerbate the situation sometimes, the pushing down, the sort of ignoring, the I can't think about that right now. And just having a moment to be still and really noticing what you're feeling and checking in with yourself, like what is the thing that I'm feeling right now. And even if you can't name the emotion, like if you can't say like, oh, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm whatever, just feel, become aware of any kind of sensation inside. Even that is enough, just to be like, whoa, okay, it's almost like there's a wave like moving in my chest, or
Mm.
it's almost like there's like a fish like swimming around in my belly, like my solar plexus, or I feel like it's almost like there's stones around my heart center, or whatever. Just like you kind of like bring it back into the body, and you just see and become aware of what's happening. And the paradox is just how simple it is,
Mm. Yeah, it
right?
always
Because
seems like
people,
it's so hard, huh?
yeah,
But it's that simple.
right. And yeah, and that's, I mean, yeah, I have a whole chapter about it. So,
Um, we're running short on time because I have the 40-minute. I've got the free plan on the pillow. I should have stole someone
sure.
else's. But I think we need a part two of this conversation because we literally just scratched the surface with this. And
Totally
there's
agree.
just so much more. Like your book is so intercorrelated, related within the culture statement, can be applied with that, and outside of the culture statement too. Literally, the arts culture, the arts environment, the arts community. It's something that we can take with us to apply in our environments and our communities outside of the pillow. So I we're going to end here. We're going to pause here. And I think we should definitely dive deeper a little more of that application of the correlation of peace perception, not only for ourselves, but for the communities in which we're stepping out into every day. So to be
Yeah,
continued and
I'd love to.
more
I'd
soon.
love to.
Yes.
Yeah, sign me up. Well,
Uh,
and it's so nice to talk to you, and like you're such an expert in what you do, and so it's just like easy to kind of like have our back and forth, and to be able to like really get into these topics, and notwithstanding like we both have the pillow like as
right.
our backdrop for this talk.
Right. Well, more to come. Part two.
Great. I look forward to it.